So what do you hope a reader takes away from Dance For It?
A reader, a listener, a viewer, because
yeah,
it's all in there. I mean, that's one of the things that is so cool about it, that there is this layered, metaphorical, poetic, which was your way of describing it, but it's already transformed. And so I think it can act as a reference, it acts as itself. I think that it's not only for dancers or dance audiences. I think anybody who makes anything might find something interesting or helpful in it. That this is a collaborative process. There are lots of views, lots of people involved, and so I hope they take away a sense of the matrix of making that is reflected. And it's not the same as looking at the whole piece. I mean, there's a link where you could look at the finished work of a history, but it's a very different kind of a view. So
our goal was that we wanted, if you were actually watching a dance in the long term, we wanted you to be able to sort of touch a particular point and hear the four collaborators. What were they thinking in that moment? How did we get to that moment? Because surprisingly, we actually would get there from very different, sort of ways that even we didn't even know. We didn't know the internal monologue, or we didn't know sort of what the dancers were actually thinking in that point, or the narrative they were building to actually inhabit that place. I'm often working on the outside, so I'm not always aware of what's going on internally. So we were also curious about that type of sharing, and it was really exciting to learn more about what was actually happening at a particular time, in a particular moment, that led to sort of this creative, generative event. So the hope was that we could create, a sort of an ebook, iBook, that could convey that in a way, not as a how-to manual, but as a capture, of process.
And as you're saying this, it reminds me that when mentioning going to the wall from 1998, which was 17 years ago, there was the Department of Dance professor Vera Maletic started a version of this idea of archive and responses from the dancers, where it was an early technology of looking at the piece and identifying, this is what Sarah had to say about this moment in this group section, or Daryl, or Talvin, or myself. So in a way that we've been kind of quietly working toward this endpoint without knowing that it could actually be contained in something nice and shiny like that.
Well, do you think it's actually an endpoint?
Good point.
I hope not.
Yeah,
I
hope
think it's,
not.
there's so much to capture and to even think about, even as I explore it. It leads me to want to think more about my process and how that's documented.
Yeah, and hearing you talk about the structural map and realizing that there's reams and reams of just dramaturgical process, and your evolution as a dance dramaturg, I mean, that would make a great iBook, or any of the dancers, or performance, or the idea of partnering that has happened in several pieces. So there's lots of new directions to take.
I mean, my hope is that we actually can continue to go back to even the threads that are there and continue to add and develop and think about what it could be.